Welcome students to the class. Today we will discuss W.B. Yeats' poem To a Shade. To a Shade was published in the collection called Responsibilities and Other Poems in 1914. This poem is one of the most political pieces of Yeats. The poem expresses the speaker's, most probably Yeats' own dislike of how the politician Charles Stewart Parnell was treated by the public. Parnell was the leader of the Irish Republican Party and was the leader of the Irish Republican Party, and he was also very widely known in Ireland at that time. Now, what happened to it is a political poem that speaks about the treatment of Charles Parnell by the public. So, it's a political poem. The poem begins with the speaker addressing the ghost of Charles Parnell. It seems that the ghost has returned to the earth, and the speaker is not sure why. It might be to see his monument or to simply breathe in the air of the sea. Either way, Yeats is worried that he will again be subject to the abuse he suffered before his death. So he became very unpopular with the public, and they are still angry. Now, in the very first stanza, the speaker begins by addressing his listener, the ghost of the politician Charles Parnell. He wonders over the reason for the ghost's arrival. He thinks that possibly it is because he wants to look upon his own monument or to drink of that salt breath out of the sea. I quote. The speakers, they see these as being equally reasonable options, although the second would be better. Second one is to breathe the air of the sea. He says that that would be a better option to visit the city again. See, there's one important thing to note, and that is the tone of his speech. How is the tone? The tone is a relaxed tone. His mind moves to the builder of the monument. And what he thinks about the builder, whether or not he was paid, in the middle of another thought. So this thought comes to his mind. Now he paints an image of the sea that Parnell might want to see. What scene he would, what type of sea he would like to, Parnell would like to see. See, there would be great gulls flying around in the sky. They would be the most interesting, fastest, and most numerous creatures around, with no men in sight. Additionally, he also adds that the gaunt houses, I quote, by the sea, those that normally appear as sickly and dilapidated, they seem to give out majesty. In other words, the world is aligned to perfection. Now, in the last lines of this first stanza, the speaker warns Parnell that he should stick to the sea and the monument, only the sea and the monument. Don't visit the town because the people are not worth visiting. Why? Why are they not worth visiting? Because they are still at their old tricks, I quote. Now, this is a reference to the way in which the people esteemed his efforts to reform the country's land laws. Now, Yeats saw the actions of the public as a betrayal of their own best interests and of the man who was willing to fight for them. Now we come to the second stanza. A man of your own passionate serving kind, who had brought in his full hands what had they only known, had given their children's children loftier thought, sweeter emotion, working in their veins like gentle blood, has been driven from the place, an insult heaped upon him for his pains and for his open-handedness disgrace. Your enemy, an old foul mouth, had set the pack upon him. Now, in the second stanza, Yeats begins with a very short line of only two words, a man. So, the first line begins with only two words, a man. Now, this is the reference to another Irishman by the name of Hugh Lane. So, this a man refers to Hugh Lane. Now, Yeats speaks of him in the same way using the word man in his work, another work, and that work was, the name of that work was To a Wealthy Man. So, in this work, To a Wealthy Man, Hugh Lane is again referred to as man. Now, who was this Hugh Lane? Hugh Lane was an art dealer and collector and is best known for establishing Dublin's Municipal Gallery. Dublin is the capital of Ireland. Now, Yeats is comparing the efforts Hugh Lane made to improve the city by establishing the municipal gallery. Now, in this city, both of these men, they worked to improve the city. Who were these two men? Parnell and Hugh Lane. But both were repudiated by the public. People did not treat these two men fairly. So Lane thought of bringing some best paintings by artists such as Manet and Degas to Dublin because he was an art dealer. So he wanted to bring the best paintings of the best painters to the city and to display them for the citizens. But the city thought otherwise. People thought otherwise. The building to house them was going to cost a great deal of money, and public itself pushed back against the idea that foreign art was needed to improve Ireland. They said, we do not want paintings by foreign painters because it costed them. It was very expensive to bring those paintings by foreign painters. Now, the poet speaks on how the works Lane sought to bring to Dublin would have improved the city. What benefits would have the citizens gained? See, they would have given, I quote, the children of the city loftier thought, I quote, and created sweeter emotion, I quote, in their veins. So it would have given them, the children, what? Two things, loftier thought, dignified thoughts, high thoughts, and sweeter emotion in their veins. These are human characteristics the speaker saw as having been driven from the city. Now, the children are deprived of these two basic human characteristics. So, rather than appreciate Hugh Lane for his efforts, there were insults heaped upon him for his pain. So, all the hard work that he did, all the pain that he took to bring those paintings, in return, what was given to him? Insults were heaped upon him for his pains. He was being open-handed and was met with disgrace. The speaker sees the actions of the public as shameful but only what could be expected at this time. The way Lane was treated is more than comparable to the treatment of Parnell. Now we come to the last stanza. Go, unquiet wanderer, and gather the Glasnevin coverlet about your head till the dust stops your ear. The time for you to taste of that salt breath and listen at the corners has not come. You had enough of sorrow before death. Away, away, you are safer in the tomb. Now, in the last stanza, the speaker returns to addressing Charles Parnell. He tells the man, who a reader must remember, he has returned to the earth in the first stanza. He has returned to the earth as a shade, as a ghost. So he asks that shade, that ghost, to go away because he's a wanderer. Now he's a wanderer. He's wandering on this earth. So he's moving about. The speaker asks the ghost to take with him his Glasnevin coverlet. He's referring to the cemetery in which Parnell was buried in the north of Dublin. Now, Parnell should go back to the dirt in which he was buried until the dust stops his ear. The speaker believes that Parnell would be safer and less sorrowful beneath the earth than above it, where public can still offend him. So, with this, we finish the discussion of W.B. Yeats' poem To a Shade.